Hey everybody, welcome to the Preacher and the Prodigy podcast, and this is our special annual Michigan-only preview podcast. So if you are completely apathetic toward the University of Michigan Wolverines, our team, we got another podcast coming up with games every week, and this probably isn't yours. If, on the other hand, you especially like Michigan or especially dislike Michigan and are just fascinated to watch the train wreck that is Michigan football over the last few years, this might be an episode of interest to you. So we're going to be looking at this upcoming 2021 season and doing a preview with a season prediction and then kind of looking at some aspects of the team in a little different way than we have in the past. So here's the setup. Both Jericho and I are going to give you our season win total predictions. And then for each one of our predicted wins, we're going to give you a reason why we're hopeful or optimistic about the season. And then for each one of our predicted losses, we'll give you a reason why we're kind of discouraged or nervous or downright upset about the season that lies ahead. So we're going to just kind of go through quite a bit of detail about the team here over the course of the next few minutes, but it's all under the heading, what do we think is going to happen in this season? How do we think the season is going to fall out?
Yeah, we're going to go through a couple of questions here. It's going to be dependent on our win record, so it's going to be like if you say Michigan's going to go 5-7 in the regular season, then you have to say 5 good things and 7 bad things about them. Or
reasons to be hopeful and optimistic.
And if you're like 9-3 and you're going crazy, you have to say 9 optimistic things and 3 pessimistic things.
Okay. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right. Yeah. So I'll go first here with my rundown here. I printed some things off. And so my season prediction for Michigan, this might be surprising to some people, and it might not be surprising to others. I'm gonna hedge a little bit. I'm gonna say that Michigan I see 5 wins, and I see 5 likely losses, and I think there are 2 swing games. So I'm gonna say those 5 wins first, and then I'm gonna say my losses in the swing games, and then I'm gonna just go 6-6. 6 reasons to be hopeful and 6 reasons to be concerned, and just kind of assume that they're going to split those swing games. I have wins. I think a close win to open over Western Michigan. I think this could be a 34-27 type game in Michigan's favor. I think they have their best win of the year at home against the Washington Huskies, who could end up being a top 15 team. I think that will be one of the season highlights. I have a win against Northern Illinois because, frankly, Northern Illinois is not any good. And hopefully, if there is a game where Michigan gets to get some run for some of its backups and freshmen who are looking to get in that 4-game redshirt rule, that they get it then. I have a win against Rutgers, so I have Michigan starting 4-0. And then I have the wheels falling off a little bit. I think that they'll lose at Wisconsin. I don't think there's much debate about that. I don't know if you've seen an early line on that, but they do not win.
Last year they lost by like
35-11, I think.
No, it was more than that. It was like 49-11.
Right.
It wasn't even close.
It was 35-11 at one point. Probably it didn't end that way. I think that they have the swing game of the season. Number 1, I think, is the game at Nebraska. That's a night game. And we've just seen Nebraska lose to Illinois. I think that Nebraska's probably not as bad as they looked. And that night game in Lincoln, it just feels like a game Michigan plays terribly in. Just based on our understanding of the team. This is a game that they're going to turn it over 3 times. Somebody's get injured. Nebraska's going to get a couple funny bounces on a tip pass and maybe a bang pass interference call in the end zone or something like that. So I see that really hard to predict that game. I think they win at Northwestern. Northwestern was excellent last year, but they're devastated this year in terms of turnover and injuries. Swing game number 2 is at Michigan State on October 30th. Again, you can see that one playing out in a lot of ways. Michigan State's roster is not particularly strong either, but they always play the game of the year against Michigan. And then I see 4 losses in a row to finish the year. I think they lose against Indiana, sadly. I think they lose at Penn State kind of decisively, and I think they're going to lose at Maryland. I think that game in between Penn State and then the last game against Ohio State, people are going to be surprised to hear that, but I think with Tua Tagovailoa and some really nice weapons around him, I think you're going to see Maryland have a really big win there. And then I have them, of course, losing probably quite miserably to Ohio State. So I have 5 wins, 5 losses, 2 swing games. I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to give you 6 negatives and 6 positives.
I say that I'm going to go 8-4. I'm pretty high on the Michigan Wolverines right now. I think that...
And that's saying something to say 8-4 is high on Michigan.
Yeah,
right now.
I know. Yeah. At this point, it is. I think the Western Michigan game is going to be a bit closer than it should be, like you said.
Line's 17 right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be under that.
It'd be all over the Broncos.
I'd say it's a really close game against Washington. Maybe a controversial call into the game, but I think Michigan's going to pull that one out at home. Northern Illinois, it's not even close. Rutgers showed a little bit of fight last year at home, sending us into third overtime or something. But I think we're going to beat them. Let's see. What are the other games?
We got Wisconsin and Nebraska road games after that.
Wisconsin's it's not even gonna be close like last year. Did you say Nebraska?
Nebraska's next.
Nebraska, I'd say, like you said, is gonna be a close game.
If you're gonna get to 8, you've got to have a win in that game.
Yeah, but from what I've seen of Scott Frost, they're not really scaring me all that much. After that horrible loss to Illinois, the scoreboard does not show what happened in that game. Then what's next?
We got a bye and then week. Home to Northwestern and at Michigan State.
Against Northwestern. I think they're gonna come out with fire against Michigan State. I think they're really gonna want to win that game bad.
And then the games I had them losing 4 in a row: Indiana, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State.
I'd say they're gonna lose to Indiana. It's gonna be the second time in a row. After Michigan's beaten them 53 years in a row without losing. Penn State game, is that game on the road, I think?
That's a whiteout probably.
Whiteout game. That game's a coin flip for whether it's going to be a blowout or a close one. But I still got Penn State winning that game. Maryland, until they've proven to me that they're a real threat and that they can surprise some teams, I'm going to take Michigan to beat them. And we all know what's going to happen.
So you have Michigan losing to Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, and Wisconsin.
So all the predicted losses, just none of the teams that you think could beat them has really proved anything.
That's probably what Vegas lines would say right now, similar to what you're saying. Okay, so let's go in. I'll go first with my. I always like to end on the upper. I'm going to start with my negatives. And then you want to do your negatives, and then
I'll do my positives first.
Okay, so I'll do my negatives first, and then your positives. And then we'll finish after that. My negatives, I'm going to start with 2 negatives on defense. First of all, I think that the defense is going to be a problem. For the first reason, I think just it's a new system. Mike McDonald comes in from the Ravens, and then Steve Clinkscale's coming in as sort of an assistant defensive coordinator with the opportunity to move to kind of a co-defensive coordinator down the line. Anytime you have a new system, it's going to be a challenge. New terminology. I think that there's a lot we could say about the bringing in of Mike McDonald and Weiss as the quarterbacks coach. When Jim Harbaugh needs to make changes in assistants and the place he goes to is the Ravens, it tells me he's not able to attract a lot of top flight talent, like a Ryan Day is able to do, Nick Saban is able to do in the associate. Now, I do really like the hires of Mike Hart and Ron Bellamy, Michigan alums, so that's a little bit of low-hanging fruit. And the Clinkscale thing after the departure of Mo Linguist was kind of a rabbit pulled out of a hat. But I think overall you got a lot of new defensive coaches, only one returning in Sean Nua, so you have a lot of ideas coming together, and sometimes that can be positive. I think in this case it's going to be a challenge for Michigan. I really see defensive struggles. So the system, number one. The second reason I'm concerned is just the overall lack of depth on defense. I think Michigan has kind of with duct tape and baling wire able to put together, 9 good starters on the field. I think starters 10 and 11, you're probably looking at the cornerback opposite Jamon Green and probably the outside linebacker opposite Aiden Hutchinson are probably not going to start too many other places. But then after that, especially in the front 7, the depth just really, really trails off. And I think Michigan has been really pretty miserable in defensive recruiting the last few years. They went hard after people like George Karlaftis, Zach Harrison, and were there till the bell, and then lost those guys. And now so we're looking at players like Jalen Harrell and David Ajabo and Julius Welshoff in there instead. And so I think that especially the front seven is going to be pretty thin. So those are my first two negatives. The third I would say is the schedule this year. We've gone through it. I would have loved to have Penn State and Michigan State at home this year. I think the teams that are considerably better than Michigan in the East are Ohio State and Indiana. And those are the home games, and I think those are going to be tough games to win at home. Some of the games that I do think would be a little bit more even on a neutral site or a Michigan Stadium, like Penn State and Michigan State, are on the road. I just don't like the way the schedule sets up this year for Michigan. Love having Ohio State at home because we just love seeing all that red and people doing OHIO in the big house. Just even worse than losing the game to me is seeing that because it shows really the condition of the fans. Number 4 reason I'm concerned is unproven quarterback play. Cade McNamara had a few good series last year. He spun the ball nicely. He had a couple rough series. It seems as if he has taken this job and really run with it, and he's fended off McCarthy and Bowman. Bowman has experience playing in the Big 12, but it's a big difference to move from there on into the Big 10. He's also had some injury issues, some collapsed lung kinds of things. We all have high hopes for J.J. McCarthy, but right now the reports are he's just too erratic with the football to be the day one starter. And I think maybe he's a season away. Though I didn't think we'll see him early, maybe not often, but I do think we'll see him earlier in the year. Unproven quarterback play. Reason number 5, I think, is a lack of big game talent, game-breaking talent at wide receiver. That Michigan doesn't have anybody like Ohio State has 5 guys of. When you look at who Ohio State has on the roster playing on the outside and even in the slot, Michigan has a lot of wide receivers that seem to me like they're number 2 or number 3 receivers, but there is no David Terrell, there's no Braylon Edwards, there's no Mario Manningham, there's not even a Jeremy Gallen, where you know you can look to that guy to make a catch, to get behind a defense, to really burn another team. And this is where a bit of a soapbox for me. I think that the debacle in handling the early enrollment of Xavier Worthy, because that guy coming in, a lot of people compared him to Anthony Carter. Now he's suiting up for the Longhorns because Michigan failed to get him in mid-year. And his good buddy, Giles Jackson, as a result, transferred out too. So kind of lost 2 players with one mistake there in the football administrative building. And it may not hurt Michigan this year as much, but down the line, not having Giles Jackson on kickoff returns. I mean, Alabama had a hard time corralling Giles Jackson. Not only do we have to play against him in game 2, but lost a couple of seasons of eligibility, and then Xavier Worthy, who I think is going to be a bona fide superstar. I think Sarkisian's got his Devontae Smith part 2 there. So that's number 5. Number 6 reason I think is just overall an atmosphere of apathy in the fans. I don't see the Big House as being a place where that's intimidating to play, and I think a lot of Michigan fans and a lot of maybe donors, a lot of people who'd be buying seat donations and season tickets they just don't care right now, and I don't think that that's good culturally, and I think that sum total can contribute to a loss or 2 along the way. And so I'm seeing 6-6, and those are my reasons really to be pretty pessimistic.
Okay, my 8 positives. I'm gonna try to go through these quickly. Number 1 is gonna be QB depth. Say if like Cade gets hurt early in the season, they still got another guy, and they get to choose whether between the running quarterback and the passing quarterback. And with Cade, he can kind of do both. Mm-hmm. So they got their options there, but for as far as we know, Cade's going to be the starter. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is going to be my running back. The running back depth. They've got one of the best running games in the Big Ten. They got Hassan Haskins, who can break tackles like nobody's business. Mm-hmm. Got Blake Corum, who was a lot of people are high on. Then they got Donovan Edwards, who you think could play Wildcat sometime in the year. Mm-hmm. He's very quick, very elusive, really high-rated recruit. So they got some running backs there. Mm-hmm. Number 3, it's going to be the defensive line. The defensive line, having Aiden Hutchinson, who is potential maybe third team All-American if he plays.
I think he'd be first team. I mean, he's the best crack we got at All-American.
Best top talent at the Michigan. We got Chris Hinton and Mozzie Smith filling the hole. And then they got some other good guys who can, depending on the game situation, can take over the game. Say Aiden is it. Number 4, I think it's going to be returning corners. They aren't losing very many corners this year, but then again, the passing defense wasn't that great last year.
Yeah, I think that's about the best you can say about it. It wasn't great. Actually, it was terrible.
Yeah. But they do have Daxton Hill, who is a upgrade. They have Jamon Green, who is solid. They have Vincent Gray, who got burned on a lot of passes.
Vincent Gray does not give me warm feelings.
He does not, but he's
I think he got beat up by DJ Turner, actually. So
yeah, and then you got 2 safeties, one of them, Brad Hawkins. He's a good ball hawk. No pun intended. And they have, pretty sure Makari Page is playing safety. Am I right on
that? I'd say Daxton Hill is your starter.
Yeah. Those are my reasons for, not a great cornerback options, but, they got everybody returning back from the secondary. The receivers, they don't have, like you said, a breakout player, but they have a lot of good guys. They have reliable Ronnie Bell, who's been there a while. They got Cornelius Johnson. They got some good young guys in speedster Roman Wilson and A.J. Henning, who could be a stud in his senior year. We missed out on Xavier Worthy, which I'm kind of mad about, but we still got pretty nice depth. Their O-line has always been all right. It's never been incredible. They just produced Jalen Mayfield, so I feel like those guys, the coaching staff at the O-line, can try and figure out with the new guys how to make sure that this running game works. And if the running game does work, we're going to be a lot harder to stop. The recruiting, I like the recruiting job that Jim Harbaugh's done this year. They got a really high quarterback, a really high running back. They've got solid everywhere else. Got just
Junior Colson at linebacker. There's a good chance that guy starts at least one game this year.
Giovanni El-Hadi. He's a pretty good recruit.
He's probably a redshirt at O-tackle, but good down the line.
And just they've had a really solid recruiting class this year. My number 8 is I really feel like Michigan just missed out last year going 2-4. It's nothing they've really seen before, so I feel like the whole organization is going to feel this is the year we're going to bounce back and we're going to make ourselves known in the college football world after sucking a lot last year. Going triple overtime to Rutgers.
So what you're just kind of saying is they're due.
They're due. Yeah. So those are my 8 reasons.
Okay. You want to give your negatives? And
sure, I'll give my negatives.
Okay, let's hear what... You have only got 4 negatives, so...
My number 1 negative is the linebacking core. They have Josh Ross, who is all right, and they have Michael Barrett, who's playing Viper. But everywhere else, they just really don't have that guy that can get you 7 tackles in a game, or
that's why I think Colson may have to play. But they really seems like Michael Barrett has lost his job to Kai Hill Green. And what does that mean? They've got a couple other options in younger players as well in the system, but the starting linebackers just there's not. Remember that Wisconsin game? Just seeing those guys going the wrong way, filling the wrong hole. Kind of just playing the El Matador defense, just watching people like Jalen Berger just run past them and Garrett Groshek. It just was absolutely nauseating.
Another problem with me is they could lose 11 out of their 12 games this season. Like, they could lose 11 out of 12. I don't think it's going to happen in any way. But they have, even the Western Michigan game is going to be tough because they have some very good players there, very talented players. Maryland game, like you said, to Talia Tungavelo has shown some sparks last year, but he could really blow up this Michigan defense. Nebraska game, even though they lost to Illinois, it's still away at night.
Yeah.
That's never a good thing for Michigan.
Bad recipe.
And just everywhere else, even the Northwestern game, they could lose.
There are wheels completely falling off scenarios this year that look as bad as we've seen since Rich Rod.
Yes.
You wouldn't predict them, but you could see how that's possible.
Yeah,
anything's possible these days. 2-4 last year.
My number 3 concern is Jim Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Just Jim Harbaugh as a person. He has not beaten Ohio State his entire time here at Michigan. He's the hottest coach. He's on the hottest seat of any coach in the nation.
At least the hottest seat east of Lincoln, Nebraska, for sure.
I mean, he's been sort of efficient. He's come here and he's done one of the 3 things that they brought him here to do. Number 1 was win games, which they've done. They've gone 10-3 a couple of years. Number 2 was beat Ohio State. He's never done that. And number 3 was championship games. He has not made one, Big
Correct.
Ten or college football. And then number 4 is they just can't hang with teams who are even a little bit better than him. Besides the Notre Dame game that a couple of years ago when they absolutely demolished them, they have not, even if it's like a 14 against a 17 and Michigan's a 17, they could still lose by 28.
Mm-hmm.
They just cannot hang with the better teams. They'll beat teams they should beat, and they will get blown out by teams that they should just lose by maybe 10 points.
Yeah.
So those are my 4 negatives.
So we have a lot of reasons to be concerned this year, and they're really, no one is going to be shocked if this is a really bad year. I mean, you look back to last year; they had 1 very good game and 5 absolute choke jobs. Hardly showed up against
almost
Indiana.
6.
Yeah, I mean the Rutgers thing in triple overtime. I mean, come on. Now looking back, how much did COVID have to do with it? There was a report that they had to get out of that Iowa game at the end of the year because they had like 41 guys who could play out of a team of 85 scholarships plus 20 walk-ons. So I mean, Michigan was devastated by COVID. But other teams were impacted as well by COVID. And so it was a really ugly, forgettable year, and there's the prospect of that happening again. So let's
try to go through this quickly because we're kind of getting high on time.
Let's end with some uppers, some upbeat things. 6 reasons to be positive. I think number 1, I'm going to start with leadership, and I really think the leadership of not just the captains, which include Aiden Hutchinson, but also Cade McNamara. I think there really is some fire in these guys' belly. I think Ronnie Bell's a good leader. I think you have good vocal leadership like Michigan hasn't had in a couple of years, and that's going to hold more people accountable for more things. So I'm positive about the players' leadership there in the locker room. I'm excited about depth on the offensive line. And yes, Mayfield did leave with some eligibility in his pocket, and Zach Carpenter weirdly transferred to Indiana, looking at potentially 4 years of starting in Michigan. That was a shocker. And yet, Michigan has recruited solidly on the offensive line to the point at which I think they really have like 8 guys who can play offensive line. Maybe 9 if Greg Crippen is ready to go. But you look at Trevor Keegan, Chuck Filianga, Trente Jones, Andrew Vestardis, Andrew Stuber, Zach Zinter, Ryan Hayes, and Carson Barnhart. So you've got 8 guys that you can rotate in there. So an injury or 2, Michigan's going to be okay.
It won't hurt them that much.
Yeah, I think that they'll be all right. And I do think that that's going to be where they try to establish their identities with the run game. Reason number 3 for optimism, I like 3 breakout sophomores this year. I think that the breakout player for the team, it was a joke, the breakout player is Blake Hornum. I really think Michigan, when they saw this guy, they saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire Part 2. Low to the ground, very shifty, very strong, and yet has the ability to turn on the jets too to get away. A little bit like maybe a J.K. Dobbins too, although he's not as electric as J.K. Dobbins, but he's a really fine running back, and I think he's going to be, as much as I like Hassan Haskins, everyone likes that hitting power, right? They like the strength of, I think that for an every down back, I like Blake Hornum. It was amazing, we were talking about how Zach Charbonnet transferred to UCLA. For Zach Charbonnet, who just tore it up in Game 1 against Hawaii to leave Michigan because of the depth chart, it tells you that the running back room is really good. I like A.J. Henning. I don't think at the beginning of the year, but I think by the end of the year, he's going to establish himself as a pretty good football player on the perimeter. I think if it's him or Roman Wilson, I think my prediction is going to be that A.J. Henning breaks out this year. And I love Makari Page at safety. I think the Makari Page emerging as a reliable three-down safety will give Michigan the opportunity to move Dax Hill onto the wide receiver most dangerous from the other team. And I think that will take a lot of pressure off Jamon Green and whoever that other corner, if it's DJ Turner or Vincent Gray. I think I'm going to build on the offensive line, and I think you mentioned this earlier. I'm excited to see what Michigan does with Donovan Edwards. This true freshman running back is something special, and he comes again to the strongest position on the team, but he's really, really good in the pass game, and I think you mentioned this. Someone in one of the magazines suggested, hey, a wildcat formation with Donovan Edwards. And remember a few years ago, Arkansas had the wild hog formation. They had Darren McFadden and Felix Jones. And maybe occasionally they would have a wideout who comes in to run a jet sweep or something like that. And then just a whole bunch of offensive linemen for a numbers game. And I think that Michigan, as a change of pace, could potentially put on the field, Haskins and Edwards, or Corum and Edwards, and then a bunch of offensive linemen, and just see if they can move the line of scrimmage that way. You've got a strong guy and an electric guy. I think that could be a lot of fun. But I'm excited. I hope Donovan Edwards is a kickoff returner too.
Just do it like Wisconsin does it. Run the ball, pass the ball, and then run the ball a lot more.
And then mix a jet sweep in there once in a while too, with maybe a Roman Wilson. Number 4. Let's see. Or is this my number 5 already? Yeah, number 5. So number 5 for me is the kicking game. Michigan, if the strength of their team isn't running backs, it's the place kicking and punting game. You've got Jake Moody. Finally, Quinn Nordine is off the team, and his off and on drama is gone. Yeah, the kid could make amazing kicks and he'd miss extra points. And then Brad Robbins at punter. And then Tommy Doman coming in as a punter too. I think that they've got good legs on this team. I think they can win games that come down to field goals. I think they can flip field with a punt team as well. So I like Michigan's kickers. I think that might be the place where, in the Big Ten, if you said one unit is the best in the Big Ten, it's probably the place kicking unit for Michigan. And then lastly, this is going to be a strange one, but I'm going to say the thing that makes me excited about this year is the urgency that has come from this contract extension for Jim Harbaugh. It is a contract extension that looks like a vote of no confidence. And what has happened is that it's a fantastic contract extension for Michigan, even as it's bad for Harbaugh. Harbaugh went from being the 4th highest paid coach in the country to the 4th highest paid coach in the Big Ten, with the opportunity to get back to his salary with incentives. So I can see that this is kind of light at the end of the tunnel season. Either Jim Harbaugh really gets back to the coach he was with the Niners and with Michigan in 15 and 16 and with Stanford, or because of this adjusted contract, they're going to be able to buy him out. And I really, honestly, I hope it's Jim Harbaugh. I hope that Jim Harbaugh gets back to the fiery guy that he was early in his career, and that can turn around recruiting with some of this new staff that he has built for recruiting. Because everyone's talking about how, if there's Michigan's going to get Matt Campbell or something. I'd be really cautious with that assumption. I don't think Matt Campbell is running to Ann Arbor anytime soon. And if there is a coaching change at the end of the year, you're maybe looking at someone more like maybe a Bill O'Brien back in the Big Ten, maybe like a Billy Napier, maybe a Jeff Hafley. But I don't think it's a slam dunk you're going to get Marcus Freeman to come. I don't think it's a slam dunk you're going to get Matt Campbell. And so what Michigan really needs is Jim Harbaugh to feel the urgency of this and either lift them to a 9-3 season and show well against Ohio State, or the light at the end of the tunnel says, hey, Michigan is going to part ways. Maybe Josh Gaddis gets an interim tag for a year, although I doubt that. But let's see if what the team can do with Mike Hart for a couple of years and Clink Scale and Ron Bellamy and build from there. So I got him at 6-6. You got him at 8-4.
Yep.
And who knows what's going to happen? A lot of things can happen, but we're very cautious. We're not even cautiously optimistic. We're just cautious this year.
Michigan could go 3-9 or 9-3. Who knows?
Yeah, that's probably the range of likeliest outcome. So, all right, that's our Michigan only preview. Wolverine fans, we hope that you hung in there with us. Spartan fans, what are you doing? Whatever. But Thanks for watching, and more to come from the Preacher,
Prodigy.